Red Wolf Pope.
In my mother's language, that means my name is Red Wolf. I am Tekwedi, which is brown bear. Bear Paw House, Eagle Moyedi, from Yakutat village. Ninaniha Angaisha, Ninania Dosawi Nui, Sohobi, Nui Sogovia. In my father's language, I am Shoshone, and I'm of the White Knives from Nevada, near South Fork, Duck Valley Reservation, born among the Tomokes in Elko, Nevada. So this is a way I was taught to introduce myself, from my mother's Tlingit people, my father's Shoshone people, and here I am in the middle, and I want to pay my respects to the Duwamish. Thank you for having us all here in your longhouse and on your lands. I wanted to take this chance to introduce myself. I'm on a fellowship with Representative Jim McDermott, and was asked to help move the Duwamish recognition struggle forward. I've recently I'm hoping I can earn that. Recently, I finished law school at Seattle University, and I'm in the joint degree program, so I'm taking the master's courses now, the MPA Policy Analysis. I wanted to speak a little bit about this day, what it means, and why I chose to do this. Many times you hear people talk about Seattle. You hear people talk about Chief Seattle. You hear people talk about his speeches. The environmentalists love to cite his words about taking care of the earth. We do not belong, or the earth does not belong to us, we belong to the earth. They love that line. And yet, the descendants of Chief Seattle are never mentioned. All these things happen on this land, on the dust of the ancestors. When I was raised in Nevada, and when I was in the village in Alaska, they told me literally, when we talk about our ancestors, we've been in these lands so long. So many of our people have lived and died here. So many of our bodies have returned to the earth that is the dust of our ancestors we walk upon. This longhouse was built upon the dust of Duwamish ancestors. And so these cedars grew in the dust of those ancestors. That's how they come back to us, and they build the bones of this, this longhouse. There used to be 94 around this Puget Sound. They were burned down one by one during the colonial process. It's good to see that at least one has come back to this area. And so this is a long process. This is Indian law. Studying Indian law was very frustrating. This is being the Jews if Hitler had won World War II. The Holocaust would never be spoken of. The effects on the Jewish people would never be spoken of. And that's what happened to Native people. People ask, why don't you just get over it? They don't ask that to the Jews. They don't say, oh, why you still mention the Holocaust? Get over it. That's called anti-Semitism. But people do that to natives every day. This didn't just happen a long time ago. The effects still happen. My family, members of my family were taken into the boarding schools and beaten. Members of my family, my immediate family, were adopted out. My grandmother was sold as a slave. 5 of my aunts and uncles have been murdered. I don't even want to recount the rapes. None of that was ever prosecuted. I remember wondering, when I was little, why it became this way, how this all happened to our people. And I relearned it I was one of 6 men in a native dance group in my senior year of high school. And by the end of my senior year, I was the last one left. The rest had ended up locked up, and one was dead. And I was the one that made it. They always said, oh, you're going to be the one who makes it. They already had given up for themselves. The pain inside them was too much. The things that had happened to them were too much. They had too much anger. Even relearning our own history, we go through the stages of grief, and I want you all to watch for the young ones out there that are learning their history. They're going to go through this process. It's shocking to them. They have to learn what happened to us so we can change it. But at the same time, we have to understand what it's going to do to them to learn this, to learn what's been taken from them. I really appreciate being able to be here today and see the Duwamish people coming back stronger. You know, it's nice to see young storytellers out there too, you know, and especially because they have another little storyteller on the way. And so I want to honor that. But these things, these days, they have to continue. They have to, this kind of a day, this has to be every day. And so I'm hoping that as this struggle moves forward, I know that there's many different ways that our people have to heal. And this takes legal work, yes, but it also takes legislative work. And so I am working in the course of, there's a case before Judge Cohenauer. And there's also a bill that Representative McDermott has introduced. And I've been speaking with tribal leaders and trying to get more of them on board with support. And so as this moves forward and we all stand together, you know, we have to remember Chief Seattle talked about also this time. He saw a time when he said the ghosts of my people would be walking among, you know, the cities, and he said these streets of Seattle, the people that would think they were empty, but they're not. The ghosts of the ancestors are still there. And so that's why we're able to be here today, is because those ancestors are strong and they want the people to continue. This is not something that ever was meant to die out. We need the people to understand the history of the land that they stand upon, and that this history spans all the way back to time immemorial. This is Duwamish land. This is a Duwamish longhouse, and it is an honor to be here working for the Duwamish people. Healing is a hard, long process, and ceremony is a large part of it. And I can do what I can in the courts. I'm only there because my people prayed for me. They wanted there to be at least one member of the Shoshone who made it to law school. Not many members of that tribe make it out of high school. But I was the one that the elders took, and they would have me sit in the corner and listen. I was the one that they gave a name. You know, before I was even born, they just said, okay, this is going to be his Indian name. It's the only name he's ever going to get. And so these kinds of things have to happen more. We have to take our names back. We have to take our culture back. We have to take and be proud of who we are again. We're not a defeated people. We're still here. They didn't want us to be here. And so the fact that this exists, that shows that we are not a defeated people. We need to tell our youth that. We need to reach out to the other communities and reach out to them as the true owners of the land. The Duwamish people, this is your land. When I'm in Nevada, that's our land. When Alaska, you know, this is the mindset we have to change for the young ones so that they can grow up and say, yes, I am proud to be Indian. I am proud that my people have been here forever, and all these other races, all these other ethnicities have come here, and I've welcomed them onto my land. I am that ambassador of my people. I carry my culture with me, and I want, therefore, to introduce someone else who's also working on these topics. I can work in the courts, I can work in the legislature, but in the old days, there was always the village, and there was the warriors who would go out and fight. And in my family, those were the Dosowi, those were the White Knives. And that's on my Shoshone side. And for Yakutat, where my mother's people come from, that was the Tekwedi. And in both cases, it was represented by knives. In the Shoshones, we had a white knife made of white obsidian. To this day, the geologists even call it Dosa Wichert. They don't even know where that name comes from. In the Tekwedi, we had a copper knife, double-sided. And in both cases, it was that we would go and we'd stand, we'd be that barrier. We'd be that barrier between the outside world that's always trying to consume what's left of us. And it's not even always that these other groups do it in a negative way, it's just that they're all fighting for the fair share of the pie. But they forget that it was our pie, you know? And so, these warriors had to change because the battles happen on paper now. And so, what used to be knives had to become pens. What used to be shields had to become briefcases. And I had to spend a long and hard 3 years among people who would make a lot of very unpleasant statements about Native people. And I knew I had to be there to get that knowledge so that I could go and be a barrier. And it means that I can't always be in places like this. I can't always be part of the ceremonies. But when those warriors would go out there and protect that, it's because the people back home were still able to tell stories, that the youth were still able to eat the traditional foods and learn the stories and spend time with the elders. And so I'm doing what I can. I cannot promise anything except to do my best, and I'll keep praying for the right way to approach these things, and I'll hope that the second time the Duwamish get recognized, that it won't be taken away. But we've always recognized Duwamish as Native people. And what we're really just trying to do is get the government to stop lying to itself about what we all know. So I want to thank you for your time and for your indulgence, and I will try to do my best. And I would like to introduce someone who's working on the other end of things. As I head out and try to be that barrier, there's people working to heal our villages back home, so that those of us who go out to protect things, there is actually something to protect. If Jay would like to come forward and speak about her work on healing, I think that this is very appropriate for everybody here. We were just down among a lot of the tribal leaders at the Centennial Accord, and the question kept coming up. Things are happening, our youth are doing things, and we don't understand. And so, this is Jay, she's also from my village, and we'd like to pass the mic to her and thank all of you. Aishindaga, Ganesh.
Hello, my name is Jamesha Merkuliev. I'm also known as Jay Masikin Shada, and there is a story behind that. What I do is my passion, and I found a way to make it my living. Columbus Day brings a lot of emotion to my people. I'm Aleut from St. Paul and Fairbanks. I grew up with a lot of my Aleut family. I'm also Tlingit from Yakutat, and the struggle is all too real to me. I studied adverse childhood experiences studies. I worked in Snohomish County and helped 5 youth councils and 2 youth groups do community work and fight their adversities. We did campaigns about suicide prevention, and that's when it all changed, because I realized the suicide rate in Indian country. And I know why it happened, and I know what's wrong, and I've seen the studies, and I know how to help. My grandparents raised me. They're all in their 70s and 80s. They've all passed now. Alaska became a state in '59. My godfather that raised me was born in '31. He lived through it. He saw it. And these weren't people living in igloos. These were successful people. They had, my great-grandfather, Victor Masikan, owned the first coffee shop in the Bering Sea before the settlers came. That term, settlers, is insulting. They took our land, they took our money by force. They beat my grandparents not to speak their language. They threatened their families if they didn't. We lost a lot of family members that didn't want to conform. They'd rather die. So now, being here, it was really hard being away from home. I came here to give my children a better life. But somebody told me there's 90,000 natives in Seattle. You think you're the only one that feels lost? You think you're the only one that feels lonely for that culture? And I'm not. So what I'm trying to do is inform people about this study. The study is real. It's a science, and it shows whether you're a boy or a girl, at what age, and what stage of your life. There's 10 adversities studied, 3 forms of abuse, 3 forms of manipulation, and there's other factors, whether you had a mentally ill parent, absent parent, divorced parents, plays a part in it. All those are studied, well studied. And there's a format to approach people that are like that, with these odd behaviors. These people are suffering. When you see people on the reservations and they're in gangs and they're in alcohol and they're on drugs, it's because they're filling a void. And it's very unfortunate that the dysfunction that gets passed down through generations because of what has happened to our culture. I know because my family suffered the same dysfunction. I'm here alone in the city with my kids. And it's very important for me to bring that culture back. And I have a plan. I will inform all community agencies and all tribes about adverse childhood experiences studies. Tell them that there is a way to approach these people and a way to help these people. And all I want to do is be the link. That's all I want. And the way to combat that and bring us back and bring them back from that is to reintroduce their culture daily. Every single day, my kids should be in their regalia, going to school, respected by their peers, respected by the faculty. And maybe that would bring about some accurate education about our history. Because it's swept under the rug. Nobody talks about it. Nobody wants to talk about what happened to the natives. But it's important that they know. I teach my children what happened to my grandparents. I teach them what happened to me. Why my life was so hard. Why my family was so dysfunctional. And all the things that I've learned helping all these youth around the county in Snohomish, I'm going to try to bring to Seattle, to the natives. I think it's very important to empower our culture on a regular basis, implement cultural hobbies on a regular basis, and not be afraid to share it with the community. If you can give these people back their pride, you can encourage them to find ways to accomplish their goals, to get off drugs, to get off alcohol. It will give them what they need. The hobbies will give them what they need. And if they know what is wrong with them, they can heal themselves and they can turn around and know how to approach their peers and heal themselves. It's all a circle of healing. It's because those 2 children right there, Ariana, sit down. They need to know the culture. They need to know what has happened to our family and how we can gain it back. I'm going to make them cultural ambassadors that carry their culture inside them, we will be the example for what I'm trying to do. And it's time for a change, it's time for healing, it's time to reclaim, rebuild, and revive our culture. And that's what I'm going to try to do.
Now we'll have Patricia.
Ahyaha, Duwamish, the ne, Yat Shik Shidane. Thank you to the Duwamish people. Yat Shik Shidane. All my relatives. A Mississippi band of Choctaw. Nshle, Tkachitni Bashilchin. Although Mississippi band of Choctaw, Ada Shache. Kia ani eta shanala, the in the ne'eh biyajanshle, ado nihidle. Each and every one of us is a precious child of Creator. And I live in Seattle for 11 years. And in that period of time, I learned that the Japanese Shinto masters came into this area and they were able to diagnose that many, many people were poisoned with food in this area, in the Puget Sound. That's something we don't read about or that we know. And those Japanese Shinto masters took care of those people. So I wanted to say that to you. That's something I know about the area, having lived here. And I have traveled to 8 different countries to teach win-win decision making. We're using our creative imagination, we call it it means our whole brain thinking is for the creative solution. So right now we're destroying the planet and the environment and humanity with win-lose. I have to kill you so I can live. I have to steal from you so I can hoard. And so that's my message all the way from Denepikea. That is where I'm born, where I grew up. I also went to boarding school. My parents went to boarding school. And yes, we were all told not to look Indian, don't act Indian, don't talk Indian, don't go to ceremony, don't drink, don't drum, don't sing like that. Because we were all going to hell. We were told that at a very, very young child. And that's something I addressed at Indigenous Day on Westlake today earlier. Thank you to my friends that brought me here. And for this time to say, thank you for your interest in this next generation, because the empire has taught Indigenous people all over the world to fight each other and to kill themselves and kill each other and then blame the victim. So we have to put a stop to that. Let's do it by win-win decision making. How does your gift support my survival and my gift support our collective survival? Ahyaha, Duwamish, Dene, Hojo Nahasli, Hojo Nahasli, Hojo Nahasli, Hojo Nahasli.
Thomas Hubbard to come up and share with us.
Well, my name's Thomas, and Thomas Hubbard, and I want to read a couple pieces. The first piece I'd like to read for you is a piece that's been published in Yellow Medicine Review. And if you're not familiar with Yellow Medicine Review, it's a literary magazine, and if you're Indian, Native American, Indian, or black, or some other color, you got no special chance really, but you've got just as much chance of getting published here as anybody else. Of course, they gotta like it. Anyhow, I've been living for a few years back in a place not too far from some of my heritage. And back in the Ozarks, the The people walked through there on their way to Oklahoma a long time ago. And in the first year that I was back there, I wrote this piece, and it's entitled Ozark Winter Sky. Blue beyond blue there to the north. On days like this, when Father's Son comes among us smiling like he does, no other color can match it. Passing through here long ago, afoot, driven from their home by hairy-faced soldiers, did our cousins occasionally see this same blue sky, I wonder? Did it grant them a bit of comfort? This morning, hours before dawn, stars danced on my black coffee, reflections from a sky of the same pure, wise, all-accepting black. Standing on my porch in a chill night, coffee cooling on the rail, I offered my cedar flute once, twice, 3 times, and once more, and it sang memories, recalled stories. Voices from forgotten campfires talked of blue sky days long past, whispering again of the harmony with our bruised, scarred Mother Earth. And since we're in apparently a bit of a celebration, I've got this piece that addresses Columbus Day, and this is called, Hey Columbus! Hey Columbus, you stepped out of your sport vehicle, your sport utility vehicle, you step out of it and begin fueling on pump number 3 while I finish up on pump number 4. You eye my braid, my old car, my flute bag, and the rear window, and that expression comes onto your pale, clean-shaven face. You seem upset that I don't shuffle, step aside, show embarrassment about my dark skin, and feathers hanging on everything. You are Columbus, with your arrogance and your privilege and your superior equipment. You are that same murdering foreigner. And you wish I would go away and not be present right here with road dirt on my car. Hey, Columbus, nobody needs you here. We lived here for tens of thousands of years.